Hi everybody, Larry here. Welcome to episode 73 of my South Olympic Branch update series. This is going to be kind of a miscellaneous projects episode. So I wanted to show you guys what I'm doing with these foam pieces. And so what I'm doing is I made a chunk, a longer piece that's, in this case, about 3 3/8 inches wide. And then I'm taking it and I'm using the hardboard as a guide here, and I'm just going to draw a line on it, and I'm going to use my utility knife to cut it. All right, so there's my outside line. Once I get this cut, I'll put it back in there, and I'll use the edge of the benchwork as a guide for the inside. And I'm using this kind of utility knife because I can actually get a deeper cut. Okay, there's my inside line. Okay, so that sits in there pretty good. Now I'm going to come back with my utility knife and trim this edge off. I probably won't be able to do this while I'm holding the camera, but it looks like it's working so far. I don't want to go that deep. Okay, so I'm going to put this down so I can make sure that doesn't move. Got a bit deep right there, but that's okay because this is just landscape and it's not going to be flat. So I'll paint it later and I'll use it as a base for trees and, small trees, bushes, etc., etc. I've been working on more of the fascia along the lower deck, and I cut down the piece, trimmed down at the end, the piece that comes around the corner so that it'll match up with this narrower piece. And I thought about even going narrower than that, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea of having a little bit of a lip on the edge here to maybe catch a train that might derail. I haven't had that happen yet. Knock on wood. Anyway, the other thing that I'd been thinking about doing was making the back here against the backdrop kind of a river's edge. And part of the plywood that I had laid in here had gone all the way back there, and so that wouldn't have worked very well. I needed to make it more consistent. So a little bit ago I took my jigsaw and ran it up to this brace, and then ran it from the other direction to the brace here, and then I took my saw and my manual saw and cut that down and removed the backdrop while I was doing that. So anyway, I'll have a little bit of a dip down to the river there. Hopefully that'll look pretty cool. I'm hoping to put a rock wall, some kind of jetty rocks and and some bushes up against there so that it will nicely edge the river. Saturday, May 13th, I went on a layout tour with my friends Steve, Mike, and Andrew. The first layout we visited was Bill Sorensen's awesome Great Northern 1955, which is going to depict Seattle to Wenatchee, Washington. Asked Bill where his Cascade Tunnel is, and he said it hasn't been built yet. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to operate on this thing at some point. It's pretty darn cool. Next, we visited Burr Stewart's Great Burlington Northern Railroad. It's also an HO scale layout, and there's Burr in the hat. That locomotive in front there was weathered by Brian Elchip. If you check out Burr's YouTube channel, that's Burr Stewart on YouTube. You can see a lot of the stuff that Burr does there. Next, we were on to Dave Inger's HO scale layout. I can't remember the name of this one, but it's basically Steilacoom, Washington, and it's kind of current Burlington Northern Santa Fe. An impressive amount of layout in the space that Dave has. As you can see me swinging my camera up and down, that's because there's like 4 layers here, 4 levels to it, and it's really pretty darn cool what he's done with this area that he has.
4 track Helix, 8.5 turns. Wow.
Take some pictures.
Yeah. Well, this bridge that the train is coming to is the 5th Street drainage. And it's an actual concrete trestle bridge. It's, you know, a little bit, the model's a little bit compressed, but it's an actual bridge that's built in. And then my wife's mother has a house on a bluff just south of here, so right about where those houses are. I don't have a model of her house, but that's where her house is, right above the tracks, and looking out over the water. And then right about where the train is now.
This is Mike O'Connell's Proto 48 layout. Proto 48 is O-scale 2-rail, and it's a pretty cool thing, and really, really big. It just goes on and on and on. With you in just a minute, Andrew. Unfortunately, these are all the layouts we got to see on Saturday, but we did have a lot of fun. And the conventions I always enjoy, so if you have the opportunity to go to one, I totally recommend it. And it's always great to see what other people are doing. And this is kind of a shout out to the people who put on the convention. I really think they did a great job, and really appreciate the work everybody put into it. I've installed some more of these K&J magnetics, cylindrical magnets that are rare earth. They're really strong, and the idea behind here is to allow you to disconnect a car without actually having to reach back there. It takes a little bit of fine movement to make it happen, but it does work, and it's not as visible as some other solutions. And you have to kind of push the car past it to get it to couple again. It's time to make some progress on the track in the Aberdeen yard, and so I've laid down a bead of glue, and I've also, well, that's Eileen's tacky glue anyway. And before I did that, I drilled some 3/32 holes so I could put in some wires to, for feeders. And this track isn't done yet. It hasn't been glued in yet. This one I just did. And then I'm just like running my fingers along the track here, kind of engine it into where I want it to be. And plan is to get 2 or 3 more sticks down tonight, and then let it dry, and that'll be nice and solid, and I can start working on track number 3 tomorrow. And another stick lined up. Let's see. See how that looks once you get laid down. Don't push too hard, otherwise I will rail my fingers. Let's see. I don't know why. You know, it's not like, I don't know why I care so much that it's really, really straight. After all, the real track is usually not. I started working on putting in the upper level of the Helix, which included running a bunch of bolts down these threaded rods to the right location. My friend Alex Brickoff suggested that I motorize this with a wide rubber band. He suggested the Dremel, but I found I wanted to control the speed. So that's a 1/2 inch rubber band and a bit extension, a long one. Now I find that the long one is nice because it does give, if the rubber band starts to wander, it still grips it and doesn't let it fall off. And the 1/2 inch rubber band absorbs the size of the nut. And allows me some breathing room. I tried it with a 1/4 inch and it just kept falling off. So I think that's pretty cool. I was thinking that I really wanted the staging up more in order to give myself more height for the backdrops. And so I got some 12-inch brackets and I did some testing on this. And so after installing the 3 brackets up there, it ended up moving the staging up about like 4 inches, period. So that's doing well enough, and that'll also make the staging higher on the peninsula. So there'll be higher backdrops over here. I think that'll be cool, but I've got a lot of work to do on that. I've got the materials and I've got a little bit of time, so I'm going to start working on extending this section up to match that other one. So I've got this rack I use for hauling modules to shows, and I've been meaning to put another shelf on the lower side of that for quite some time. I'm using aluminum angle to do that and just drilling some countersunk holes in it so that I can smoothly slide a module in there. I found the easiest way to do this is to start out with just drilling a regular hole in it, and then I have a countersink bit that I'll use to give that some angle. Just going to take that bit out of there and put this one in it. Okay, that number 10 screw just sits in there pretty good. It's got a little bit of a lip because this angle isn't as thick as the other one I have, but I think it will do. So I've got this rack I use for hauling modules to shows, and I've been meaning to put another shelf on the lower side of that for quite some time. I'm using aluminum angle to do that and just drilling some countersunk holes in it so that I can smoothly slide a module in there. I found the easiest way to do this is to start out with just drilling a regular hole in it, and then I have a countersink bit that I'll use to give that some angle. Just going to take that bit out of there and put this one in it. Okay, that number 10 screw just sits in there pretty good. It's got a little bit of a lip because this angle isn't as thick as the other one I have, but I think it will do. Well, the convention sure was fun. Now I'm trying to, I'm working on building a couple more number 6 turnouts to try to get the yard ladder done. So that's just, you know, one more small project in a sea of small projects. Okay, I've been working on the turnouts for the Aberdeen yard, and while I was doing that, I decided to build another one for this, for the Elma engine facility up here, which I've needed to do for quite some time. So I built a number 6, put that here. Then I'm seeing if I can line the track up to my engine house that's a Rick's building. And you guys have heard me talk about this if you go far enough back in the videos before. Initially, I was going to put one inspection pit in that building, and recently I decided to do a second one. Well, I was telling my friend Mike about this, and he said that I was going to have to buy another inspection pit. He says, I have a couple more pieces left. So he gave me the 2 pieces that he had, and that was just enough to make, to add on to what I had left over. So I'll need to trim up these pieces of track, and I need to drop some feeders in here. I've already drilled holes for that, and then I've got to wire up the tortoise underneath. So I think that it's going to look nice after I build the sanding tower and try to make that work with this width. The case or the kit says that it needs more width between the tracks than what I have, but I'm going to try it anyway and see what happens. So there's what it kind of looks like with the building in place. Of course, I haven't modified the track yet, and the building's not setting quite right, but you know, that's the way it goes. I think this, I'm liking the way this is turning out. Trying to get the camera to focus on this, but essentially I made myself some feeders. I've done this before. Generally speaking, I like the feeders on the track not to be all that visible. So I'm taking a micro-engineering rail joiner, and I put a little dab of solder on the bottom side of that, and then I tent the wire, and then I sort of heat it up and paint the wire up with the solder from the rail joiner. It makes a pretty solid joint. It's not perfect because it's not soldered to the track, which is the best way to do it, but I do these often enough and I haven't had any issues. And if I did have issues, I could come back later and solder the rail joiner to the track to help it along. Okay, so I always go blue to the aisleway and white to the away from the aisleway. And this just kind of gives you an idea. Now, I just make these 6 inches. The reason I just choose that arbitrary length is that I'm going to have to build out a way to connect these into the track bus on the bottom, because I don't have that set up yet. And since I'm going to do that anyway, I'm going to tee off the track bus and just go to kind of probably a lever nut. Whoops, don't want to do that because that turnout's not that strong right there. Come on. You put these wires in here and it is incredibly quick to become very stiff to move. And of course, I've got some burrs on that silly end of that track. So, okay, feeder's installed. You'll see the soldering iron sitting here because I accidentally broke a joint on the turnout while I was installing those, so I had to resolder that. That can happen occasionally, but when you make your own turnouts, you can pretty much fix your own turnouts too. And down below we have the new feeders just hanging out until, as I've mentioned before, I get the source for those set up, because I have to wire up that tortoise there too, and that green wire, and yeah, the list goes on and on. I've been assembling this Walther's sanding tower, and just following the instructions on the in the instruction booklet, but also just, you know, trying to get it done enough that I can use it to get a sense if my track layout over at the engine facility is going to work. And one thing that I did notice was that the bottom here is really tight. I ended up cutting a section of it off so I could get it closer down to where it needed to be. But other than that, it's a model that goes together pretty well. I probably should get some zip kicker, but what I've been doing is doing a step of gluing and then letting it sit for like 35-40 minutes. Crazy, huh? My time today has basically been occupied by gluing details to the sanding towers, which are far from done. Just kind of wanted to show you where things are. And with the new, I got a new backdrop today. I've got 2 more of these on order now because I really like that. And I may actually order another one and replace the backdrop back there so that it blends better. I got out a can of Tamiya Medium Sea Gray and sprayed some of these parts, like the inspection pits, that ramp, and street inserts right there. I might use some of them later, but the pits I needed to get ready now. Well, people, thanks for joining me for episode 73 of my South Olympic Branch Update series. Until next time, take care and have fun with your trains out there.